Today, we are thrilled to have a very special interview with an inspiring nurse practitioner entrepreneur who is crushing it out there. I am Dr. Annie DePasquale, the owner and founder of Collaborating Docs. We help entrepreneurial nurse practitioners find amazing collaborating physicians. And we have an exclusive interview for you today with Chris Bustamante, DNP and owner of Lushful Aesthetics. He started right out of NP school, his own business, and he is taking, honestly, social media by storm. He has done incredibly well in a very short period of time, and it's just so exciting to see his journey. So I'm excited to bring Chris to all of you. Chris, welcome. Thank you so much for doing this.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having me.
I know you will inspire a lot of other nurse practitioners and health professionals out there looking to go out on their own. I'd love to kick it off with what, really inspired you to start your own business, your own medical practice from, right out of school.
Yeah. So I always think that I was interested in the entrepreneurial journey. So prior to ever going to nursing school, I worked at Columbia Business School. I worked for the Entrepreneurship Center there. And so I got to see so many MBA students start their own ventures. And I think that I saw so many opportunities where I was like, oh, I would love to do that, or I would love to do this, or I'd love to take part in something. I didn't know quite what yet, but I also knew that I also had a passion for aesthetics. I've been in beauty my entire professional career in some aspect. I was a makeup artist right out of college. And so I did that for several years. Even when I was also working at Columbia Business School, I would freelance on the side. I would pick up night shifts at Mac Times Square and work from 6 to 1 a.m. So I've always been in beauty. And so I know when I went back to school, my mindset right away was always to be in aesthetics. So I always wanted to be an injector. That was the goal from the get-go when I went to nursing school and when I went through, got my RN and my DNP. So that was always in my mind. I didn't anticipate becoming an entrepreneur as soon as I really finished my doctorate program. That was not necessarily something I had planned. And I think that that's kind of a lot of, I hear from entrepreneurs as well. It's not like, half people kind of hold off on it and they're planning it so slowly and they want to make sure it's the right time. And then other people's, it's more like, oh, I kind of have to do this now. And so for me, that was more the situation. Was I think that I was anticipating starting my own business probably more like 5 years in. But my job situation kind of got, sticky, where I was working so many part-time jobs. And for me, it was really tricky because it was just like, no one really wanted to give me a full-time opportunity to give me benefits and all those different things. And then also the conversation was arising about non-competes. And so that was really tricky as well, because it's like one job is not fulfilling the needs that I need. And yet they want to start talking about not working in other places. And so I kind of felt a little bit cornered. And I think that when you kind of feel cornered, you have to make very brisk decisions. And that's kind of what happened. So it was like the intention was always there. The timing was not. But sometimes I think that kind of, from out of words, like lights a fire under your ass. And you're just like, I got to make this happen. So there was nothing else to really turn to. I worked part-time while I was kind of slowly building this out on the side, like not letting my employers know that I was really doing this. And then once I kind of felt like, okay, I have some momentum here, I have to cut the cord and just do it. So, yeah.
Your story I love that story for so many reasons, but yeah, I mean, it's funny how timing is everything. And it wasn't, maybe the way you had envisioned it, but it worked. And that's just you let natural, consequences, it just played itself out and you went with it. Your grit is so impressive, just making it happen. What gives you that drive? What is it inside you? I think that's what people need. How do you bottle that up?
I think that it's honestly something just comes from childhood. I mean, for me, it was, I watch a lot of Shark Tank, right?
Yeah.
And so I remember Barbara saying something where it was just she looks at a lot of, don't want to say kids, but a lot of young people come through and, they went to the best schools and they had the best upbringing and they had the best this. And she's like, they really don't understand what it takes to actually work. Right. And I think for me, it was just not, I mean, I didn't grow up in a poverty situation, but it was more just like, I grew up, really bullied for being gay and this and that. I think I had a lot to prove to myself, and I almost proved to others in a way too that I could do a lot. So I think I've always had that drive there to kind of prove people wrong, because people, even when I would tell them I want to do these things, I feel like so many people were kind of like, "Oh, that's really hard. I don't really know if that's like I don't really know if you can do that." I was like, "Wait, what?" Like I'm like, "You don't think I can do it?" I was just like, so like, but it's like people say that to you, and it's like not even people who are just like against you, like your friends. I have friends who like, I was very close with, who are just like, oh, like that just seems like that's like a lot for someone like, that doesn't really have all that experience or whatever it is. And I'm just like, I could do it. So I think that it's been being told no so often. And for me, like being a makeup artist when I was younger was a great experience, but at the same time, like that was not my intention. I couldn't find a job out of undergrad. I could not find a job with my undergrad degree. I graduated high school and college both a year early. I was 20 years old with a bachelor's degree, and I could not find a job. So it was one of those things where I kind of fell into, and it was fun, but at the same time, like there was also that residual, like it sucks when you feel overlooked, right? And it's like, that you're so capable. And so I think that being turned down so often really kind of also lit a fire under my ass to kind of just show people like what it is that I'm capable of doing. So I think it really honestly stems from a lot of that. It's, some degree of just trauma, of just like, all right, like I got to prove people wrong, and really show people what I'm capable of. And it's really putting in the work to back it up, because it's certainly just not enough to say like, oh, like I'm going to show you wrong. Like you have to back it up. And it's lots of long hours, and it's, unfortunately you distance yourself from friendships and relationships, because that's what it is being an entrepreneur, especially initially. I work close to 60 hours a week, not just seeing patients, but, reviewing admin. I film on a whole separate day when I'm off for social media. People are like, how do you have all the time for this content? Like I literally go in on the day off. Like, and they're just like, oh, I don't know if I can do that. I was like, well, okay, well then I don't know what to tell you to bump up your game, because I just work more. So it's just like, it's, like, obviously, yes, you're working smarter, but you also have to work more. So that's a big part of it as well. So yeah, I guess the grit just comes from all of that.
I love that. Yeah. And people need to hear that. I think a lot think, oh, I want to have my own practice. That sounds like a cute idea. It's like, there is a lot behind the scenes. Yeah. And then speaking of social media, you are really making waves with how you use social media for marketing and to get the word out, branding. So do you mind just sharing a little of just that experience and how you make that work for you?
That also came out of an odd experience too, because like before, when I was in the process of applying to nursing school, I just started like writing my essays and planning it. Because, before any of us go to grad school, it's typically like you plan like a year ahead almost, right? With like preparing essays, getting transcripts from like whatever you went to schools. I retook classes, like all that stuff. So I had left Columbia Business School and I started working for a company called Soko Glam. It's a Korean beauty company. It's like an e-commerce like Sephora for Korean skincare. So I got that job and I was working in social media there. I'd never done social media before. I had known the founder because when I first started Columbia Business School, he was just leaving, starting his own business, and he was a recent grad MBA. So just kind of like planted seeds in the beginning there. And then he had come back like almost 3 years later, did a talk, whatever it is, and like talked about how fast they were growing. And I had interest in that. Again, it's a space in beauty. And I was kind of ready to move on from my job. So I got that job there. And honestly, like I was not good at that job. Like I have to say, like I was just like, I have been way better at a lot of other jobs, and that was not the best one. And it's just because like there was a lot of analytics involved, and it's a startup, so it's like a really fast-paced environment, not really an opportunity to like learn as you kind of go. It's tough, you know what I mean? Like you're in it all the time, and so I say that because I really do believe that a lot of our success comes from failures. So like I really in my mind like failed at that job. Like I quit that job, but luckily I already got accepted to nursing school. So I left that job like a little bit prematurely, and I went back to freelancing with makeup, and was because I knew I was starting nursing school in like 4 months. So I was like, I don't need to be here. So, but I knew that I was not really great at that job because there was just so many things involved. That being said, it definitely planted a seed for me And then when I came back to, you know, finishing up nursing school and started injecting, I knew that social media really was the next way to promote your work in this field. And I had taken all of the things that I had learned, and even though in my opinion, I think that I had failed at that job, what I had learned was so much more than what most people actually know about social, from a back end perspective, right? And I still obviously had to do much more learning on my end to build on that foundation, but I had a foundation that no one else had unless you've already worked in social, especially amongst healthcare professionals, because the reality is that most healthcare professionals, for the most part, have only been in healthcare, right? And so for me, I had so many other jobs before in customer service and sales, and a little bit of marketing, right? And so for me, it was just like utilizing all those little tools to kind of start to build on something that I felt was fundamental. And so I really kind of took it and ran with it. And so I started doing social even before I started my own business to kind of build a following, build awareness of what I was doing. I worked for a practice that I got to kind of work closely with some influencers. I established that. I mean, I did that. It wasn't handed to me, but I had the opportunity to do it there. And so that kind of got me introduced to lots of different people who kind of utilize that influencer space. And so built those connections and maintained them so that when I started my own practice, I just brought them right in. So it was kind of like, very transient motion of doing all that. But yeah, so it really kind of correlated, I think, from that starting point of a failed, job. I really vouch for that a lot because I tell a lot of, younger friends or friends that are, even just now going through something where they're just not liking something. I was like, learn as much as you can. And if even if it's not where you see yourself, just like take as much as you can from it, because no matter what, like there is something to learn. There just is. Like there has to be.
Always. I so agree with that. There's the
Yeah.
sentiment. Yeah, the failures lead to the success. Like, and it's hard. Yeah, I think like younger people starting out, it's hard to have that foresight, but take
It
it from
is.
us. If you're watching this, it will help you out. All those things you mess up
Yeah,
to
all the
get to where you're
rejections,
going.
all the shitty jobs, like it all just makes you better. Because honestly, like I look at people who I think whose paths were too linear, and it seems so, I mean, it seems great, right? Because they've had an overall, like, what looks like a great experience, and they'll tell you, like, yeah, this job was good, and this and that. But I actually feel like in the end, it was almost like too easy. And they don't know how to actually push through to go through the hardships. I'm like, I don't think you're ready for entrepreneurship because I don't think that you understand what it's like to like have a bad month and fail and then like figure out like, oh shit, like what am I going to do to get myself out of this? Because that's going to happen recurringly. You're going to try new things and it's not going to work. And then you have to figure out, okay, what's plan B or what's plan C? And then, okay, it turns around. And then it's like, you try something else, that works out great. Boom, 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 up, 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 and then back down. So it's just like, that's what it is. It's a roller coaster of a ride. And you have to be able to have the gut to withstand it. So I tell people all the time to just like look back at the things that they've kind of persevered through and utilize that to, fuel their entrepreneurship journey.
That's so smart. Yeah, to find that inner strength from
Yeah.
those sort of things happening. I guess one quick question about like the beautiful part, the fun part, the great part about being an entrepreneur. Like, what gets you out of bed every day? Like jumping out of bed, like what excites you the most about being an entrepreneur and having your own business, do you think?
It's the milestones. I think it's like, so, I mean, like, I'm happy to share, like, we're, just a smidge over like half the year and we just already hit 1 million in revenue. Like that's crazy. Like, I mean, like, just like to know like that's a thing, right? As like an entrepreneur who's only been doing this for a year and like 8 months, so it's a huge thing. We're in the market to buy some new devices, and we were in the New York Post. We are now featured in a couple more articles that are coming out. So, and my team, it just grew. Like, I have 3 full-time employees now, with benefits, 401k, like everything, you know what I mean? Because I want everyone to be happy because retention is super important. So for me, it's just like, it's seeing the milestones, seeing the growth. I got invited to speak for MERS Aesthetics back in May. So, and I'm now a trainer for them as well. So it's the milestones, it's the accolades, it's all that where you're just like, wow, this is actually really working. We have almost 100 5-star reviews on Google. So it's all those things that you get to kind of like, wow, okay, this is actually like working. It's making a difference. People are super happy. That's why, you keep going, so, it's really, I have to sometimes stop myself and pinch myself to like celebrate those little wins, because they are all little wins, and like you have to make sure you like recognize it, because if you just fixate on, like I have to be doing this or this person's doing that, like it's just then it just becomes awful. You know what I mean? Like you don't want it to be this awful experience. It already is exhausting. Like that for sure it'll always be, but you want to really take in those moments where you're just like, okay, like this went really well today. And I have like weeks where like right now summer, so summer is the slowest time for aesthetics. And so, but we're still doing so well. Like I'll have like, I work Tuesday to Friday and I work 40 hours within those 4 days. And I'll have like, let's say like Tuesday and Wednesday are booked back to back and Friday's booked pretty solid. And like Wednesday, half the day is booked, but I don't see it as like, oh my God, this is a loss. I'm like, I already made the revenue. I hit the goal that I needed to make for that week. So numbers are fine. I just use that extra time to catch up on my admin work and do this and that, film, whatever it is, and not stress over like, oh, someone else could have been in my chair, right? So, because some people really fixate on all those things, but at the end of the day, like if you're hitting where you need to be, it doesn't really matter. So that's the best part about being your own boss sometimes is like, okay, like no one's booked on a Thursday, past 3 o'clock. All right, no one filled the slot. Okay, cool. See, I'm leaving. I'm like done for the day. Like that never gets to happen, but like great. Like when it does, it does. And you just kind of like, I just don't think anything of it. I'm like, I'm actually gonna go to the gym for once. Like whatever it is. Yeah. So it's the little wins.
Yeah, you make the most of every second of every day. I am quite positive. Chris and I met about 2 years, just about 2 years ago,
Yeah.
and which is it's just so great to be having this conversation because Collaborating Docs was just starting out. Chris is just starting his business. So we're very, we've had kind of these parallel lives, and we've both, dug deep to overcome some adversity to make these things happen. And it's just, it's so exciting to kind of share that with him, that we both kind of went from nothing to something,
Yeah. It's a journey.
It's the dream. Yeah. Do you mind, we are wrapping up. Chris has a very busy schedule. So we're not going to take much more of your precious time, but do you mind sharing just very briefly, like your experience with Collaborating Docs and how was that for you working with us?
I mean, I'm here because I fully think that the service is so important for so many NPs out there who are looking to start something. Because the reality is that a lot of people don't understand what exactly this is. You know what I mean? Because like it is a requirement for us in most states, either just to start or indefinitely. It depends on the state, and so. But not everyone's fully aware of how it actually works, because typically we'll see NPs that are only just working with their physician counterparts underneath them, and not really always doing their own thing. But more and more, we're seeing more NPs start their own practices, and we're kind of figuring out like, okay, how do they do it? And so for me, when I first started and I was like thinking about it, I was networking with a lot of physicians, and I've met people who are open-minded to it, but they didn't really understand what the process was. And it's a whole thing where it's like, if you don't understand the process, then you have to go through like the legal steps of just making sure that there's contracts involved that like both parties understand and respect and abide by, which is all fine because it's all transparent. But at the same time, if they're not familiar with that step, it's kind of daunting because they're, why get involved in something that they don't really know? And so they kind of are a little bit fearful of it. So I found that the physicians that I networked with, even though they were open to it, once it kind of got down to kind of getting closer to us, like, okay, let's talk to a lawyer and like get this actually worked out paperwork wise for us, they kind of would pull out because they're just like, just don't even know what this means for them. Like they're like nervous, and which is understandable. So finding a service like this where someone like yourself is dedicated to doing this, like this is your business model, the contract's already pre-drafted, you understand what the state requirements are from state to state, and you're able to educate the NP, and then they're able to kind of go back with their lawyer to make sure everything's okay. Like it's just a more grounded service that's already established and built out. So it's kind of a no-brainer. And I felt like the cost was super reasonable. And I felt like it was so easy to get in touch with you whenever I needed something. It just facilitated the whole thing. And so I highly recommend it to anyone who's trying to get their own thing started, because it's nice to have something figured out, right? Being an entrepreneur is so hard as it is, and there's so many unknowns. It takes one less thing out of the equation that is an unknown, because it's already grounded in paperwork. The service is already well explained, and I feel like you're always there. So I highly recommend it.
Well, thank you. We are honored to even say you are a client of ours. In New York, he only needs it for a year, so he's no longer with us, but we had him for that one wonderful year, and We're
And who
always
knows though, I,
willing.
still think that if I, get licensed in another state, then I will be back. So I am a future client again.
We will be waiting, yes, as you expand nationally. Yes, we will
Yeah.
be on standby. But anyone watching this, I highly encourage you to follow Chris. He's at Injector Chris on social media. We'll put the links below as well. His story is, you can't make this sort of thing up. It is an amazing, remarkable success, and totally a testament to him and who he is and what he does. And he makes it look easy. It ain't easy. So what he has done is beyond remarkable. We'll put it at that. So Chris, thank you for your time.
Thank you
and
for having me. It was a pleasure.
It's been so fun. Yeah, thank you for, you're inspiring a lot. I hope all nurse practitioners in America watch this and start their own thing, as we all want across this country. So thank you, Chris.
Thank you, Annie.
I'll visit you in New York soon, get some.
Yes,
Botox.
please. We can get some coffee. Yeah, absolutely.
Cool.